Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 117. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for joining us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, I know we mentioned on Monday, would we have things to talk about? And right on cue, Pittsburgh giving us some things to discuss, a coaching hire and a new receiver in the building. And if you heard us on Monday, it's going to be a pretty similar conversation to today, because Dave, credit to you for calling the idea of Pittsburgh acquiring Miles Boykin, the receiver from Baltimore, who was waived over the weekend, claimed by Pittsburgh yesterday.
Yeah, first and foremost, is this a voluntary session or are you in
the photos? Are you in the workout?
I am in the photo today. Okay. I just want to go on record as being able to say I attended this session today. Look, that's what we do, right? At Steelers Depot. We make some predictions like this, and we better as close as you and I and several others follow the team here. I don't think it made the Monday morning podcast, but I know we talked about it during the Monday YouTube live stream. Because I had long written it up at that point there. And for those that, maybe are behind or not caught up or what have you, on Monday, the Ravens waived former third round pick out of Notre Dame 2019 wide receiver Miles Boykin. And supposedly they had been trying to trade him the last couple of weeks, and obviously did not find a taker in that, with Monday being the start of the offseason program, and with Boykin qualifying for a proven performance escalator raise this offseason to over $2 million, $2.54 million, specifically. That move just smells of the Ravens. It was time for the Ravens to wipe their hands of him. They did not want him in the building, risking injury at that kind of price there. They obviously had tried to deal him. This is the same Miles Boykin that we have talked about really since 2019, Alex, and really even since he was drafted by the Ravens. You and I have asked the great John Eisenberg, or I know I have, what's the status with Miles Boykin over there? A guy that kind of even seemed like he might be on the outs with the Ravens dating back to last summer. Kind of wondering, with all those wide receivers on that roster, was a guy like Miles Boykin safe? Well, he obviously was. He stuck hamstring injury last year, shelved him for about 9 games, I think, in total. He only dressed for 8, only had 1 target, 1 reception for 6 yards in 2021. Didn't play many offensive snaps at all. Played a lot on special teams when he did dress overall. But his waiving on Monday, I wasn't totally shocked when I saw it. And you probably weren't very shocked to see me turn around and write an article on thinking potentially why the Steelers might have interest in claiming or either signing him after he cleared waivers or signing him off waivers. And you can go into a little about why, some of the reasons I'm sure you shared with me of why you thought there was a possibility of Miles Boykin being claimed off waivers.
Sure, and it's what you laid out in the post, but it all goes back to Pittsburgh's pre-draft interest in Boykin in 2019. That was the year they needed a receiver after Antonio Brown forced his way out of town. So you had a really big void there. You knew Pittsburgh would address it, and he was the height, weight, speed guy, almost 6'4", 220, ran a 4.42, just posted really incredible workout numbers and had I think good tape overall. I did the profile on him and was impressed with his on-field ability, but Pittsburgh brought him in for a pre-draft visit. And so because they have that stability of the same GM, the same head coach year after year, they go dust off that old report and they knew who Boykin was. They still liked him. And usually they circle back to those guys that they showed pre-draft interest in when they become available later in their careers. And so obviously they were also familiar with Boykin being in the AFC North, being a Baltimore Raven, caught a touchdown pass against them a couple of years back. So there's a lot of history there with Boykin, despite him never playing for the team until now.
Easy to connect the dots there, right? A lot easier than probably what people think.
Yeah, pretty easy. He was actually my mock draft, my final version of my mock draft for 19. I had him in the third round. They go Deontay instead because he was more the AB replacement, but Boykin very much on our radar back then.
And I did you wrote up the draft profile on him in 2019, and I did a complete contextualization of every target that he had from the 2018 season on top of it. I even had wrote an article on the site about why the Steelers might not draft him, related to production numbers not hitting that 100 reception mark in college there overall. For whatever reason, the Ravens beat them to it. Whatever, the Steelers did not draft him. But when you look back at that RAS score, which back then we were talking P-Spark and not RAS. I think his number, like 138 or 141? I mean, it was up there when you talk about P-Spark numbers there. And then when you look at the actual RAS number from MathBomb and look at all the green on that, that's crack to Kevin Colbert.
You said reference twice now in back-to-back podcasts. Maybe on 420, a different program should be mentioned. But what was the RAS?
Hey, I like that.
That took you a second.
Look at us.
What was the RAS score?
Alex.
What was the RAS score on Boykin? I'm sure it was like almost 10, 9 point something, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a step away from being a perfect 10. I think it was like 997 or something along those lines.
Looks like 994.
All right, there you go. And I think what was the thing what was the one red mark that he had in there?
I'm trying to see here. I'm just looking at the internet here really quickly. I don't see a red mark. It just looked like maybe some lower marks on his 3-cone and splits. But I mean, still 8s and 9s across the board.
And wasn't that?
Oh, it looks like the bench. You're right. The bench was a red mark. Okay, that's what probably dinged him.
Right. I mean, had he benched, and he's put together pretty nice, had he benched and done, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 reps, somewhere along those lines, he might have been close to a perfect 10 in there. But anyway, that's the kind of player that kind of planet theory to some degree when it comes to a wide receiver that Kevin Colbert looks for. And so with all the pre-draft activity that the Steelers had with him, it wasn't a bit shocking that he is now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, maybe the most shocking aspect of all this was the fact that they did claim him actually off waivers with a $2.54 million salary. But you can look at that a few different ways there. The minimum base salary for a guy like Miles Boykin would be almost $1 million, even if you just let him clear waivers and signing that way there. So you're talking about a difference of I don't know what number is, 1.5 million or something like that there by claiming him off of waivers and knowing for a fact that you get him that way and not having to worry about free agent route and competing with other teams to signing that way there. So, and it's not a guaranteed salary with him being a proven performance escalator bump. So just keep him healthy and in the program throughout the summer, and then decide by the time the final, roster cuts are made, whether or not he made it or not. And if he makes the 53-man roster for you as a depth wide receiver, Yeah, 2.54 million really isn't that bad of a deal, and especially if you can turn him around and get, let's say, I don't know, 30 catches out of him in 2022. If you don't like the process with him throughout the rest of the summer, you shake his hand and you cut him before week 1, and no future cost involved there. So now I guess it's time to look at what the Steelers are getting in former 3rd-round draft pick Miles Boykin out of Notre Dame.
Sure. And just one quick pre-draft note on Boykin, although it's generally a layup for the super sparky, brassy guys. Miles Boykin, I just looked back, checked every box in our 2019, what they look for study. So just one last note
Kudos
there.
to you. I love those. You know how much I love those. And I like matching the tape to the measurables. And nobody was more sad this year at the combine when several of those kids didn't run short shuttles and 3 codes and stuff like that, because I absolutely love looking at it. And I think you put it best. Boy, you and me are going to be pretty bummed after Kevin Colbert leaves, and if some of these kind of traditions aren't kind of carried forward with how they treat some of these measurables.
Yeah, the music's about to stop, and that makes me very sad, Dave. But to Miles Boykin and what the Steelers are getting in the here and now, be sure to check out the article that Tyler Wise wrote. He stayed up super late last night working on it, so we'd certainly appreciate the articles he did with the clips, the insight, the evaluation, kind of the scouting report, and skinny on Miles Boykin. So check that article out, sticky, top of the page on Steelers Depot. Essentially, you're getting that height, weight, speed guy that he was at Notre Dame, more that straight line type player. Hopefully someone that can stack players better vertically than what a Chase Claypool can do, but obviously they're cut from a similar cloth overall in terms of body type and style and the ways that they're going to be asked to win. And there's that Z receiver type, that vertical threat, that clear out kind of guy. But the other thing Boykin offers, which is interesting, is a special teams value. I mean, this guy's played a lot on special teams, his 3 years, 130 snaps at least every season. He played on 63% of the special team snaps last year, 144 snaps total. I believe that's just in games in which he was healthy and played in. But it's not as a returner either. I'm not entirely sure the units and things he was used on, but that seems to be more as potential coverage guys, blocker, obviously has the size, the speed, athleticism to kind of be an elite athlete on those teams units. So there's a third phase component to this as well.
Yeah, Danny Smith's ears perked up a little bit with this claiming off waivers as well. And look, you hope that's not the only calling card that Miles Boykin brings to Pittsburgh with him, but that calling card will, could be a deciding factor when it comes to a 53-man roster spot when it's all said and done. So he does have that element, some return element to him. I think he's done some gunner stuff there. Now I think he has like maybe 1 or 2 career special teams tackles at the NFL level. He's a physical dude, though, on top of it, and you can put him on the kickoff return team as kind of if you don't have him as a deep returner, you can put him up as kind of the up man as well, and probably not be disappointed with some of the blocking that he gives you. Now, both of us, it's been several years now since we've watched the college tape on him, but there's some players that I don't forget certain elements to him. One of those being his ability to, I think, as you already noted, to stack wide receivers on the outside. His run blocking ability really stuck out to me during that pre-draft process with him. His rawness, his route rawness really stuck out to me during the pre-draft process overall. And just really a 1-year kind of production guy at Notre Dame. Truth be served, at this point of the process, it's easy to look at in a rear view mirror. Miles Boykin would have been better served staying in school in 2019 in Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know my report on him, he was pretty raw coming out and seemed underdeveloped. And again, was that great athlete, but that big lump of clay. And he got put in that Ravens run heavy offense, didn't get to play a ton, had the injury this past year, and just really didn't seem to develop the way that Baltimore had envisioned he would when they took him 99th overall back in 2019. So now it's up to Pittsburgh and receivers coach Frisman Jackson to try to get that out of him.
Excuse me. Look at his tape from the last couple of years. Really, not so much last year, but the first 2 years with Baltimore. And you go back and you look at some of those J.K. Dobbins runs in 2020 specifically there, and look at some of the Dobbins tape that you can find out there. Especially the first 4 or 5 games of the 2020 season. That's really when they tried to give Boykin, I think, every opportunity in there. He played a large volume of snaps during those first 4 or 5 games of 2020. He is instantly right now, and this isn't too high of a bar to clear at this point right now. He is the Steelers' best blocking wide receiver on their roster right now, hands down. Easily. And our own Andrew Shaver reported it to me last night when I was talking on Twitter about Boykin's blocking. He says, Boykin being a top run blocker, or your suspicion on Boykin being a top run blocker is spot on, he says. According to Pro Football Focus standards grades, he's ranked as the 5th highest blocking wide receiver since entering the NFL in 2019.
And that's important. I mean,
that is.
For a running game that is not generating explosive plays, you talk about what is the difference between those runs to go 10 yards, those runs to go 20 yards. It's often the outside blocking from, downfield guys like receivers, and that was really poor last year. And Tyler, I know consistently last year, pointed out examples of the Steelers receiver blocking downfield, the effort plays, the finishing downfield by Claypool, by Johnson, by whoever, not being good enough. And that certainly hinders your chances of an already difficult and sputtering run game to get off, to pull off those 15-plus yard runs.
All right. Another thing that stuck out to me, and I think you even wrote this up in your college report on him, I think primarily played the X at Notre Dame, did he not?
Yeah, and that's why I put him in my mock draft back then, because while he wasn't the traditional body type of the X receiver, he did play that a lot. And I thought he beat press coverage well. And when you're an X receiver, you're going to see a lot of press coverage, your backside, 3-by-1 formations, the cornerbacks often roll up on you, trying to take away, inside leverage, inside position, something like that. And so you got to beat press well. And I thought Boykin, for his size and strength and overall, most importantly, his hand use, did a good job of that, at least on his college tape.
All right. At the NFL level, though, he has played, I think, kind of all over there. Is he best? He's best suited at the Z, is he not?
Yeah, I think at this level, I mean, certainly the traits you talk about, the height, weight, speed, vertical threat, that does check those boxes more of the Z receiver. The X receiver sometimes has to be a bit twitchier or just a bit freakier overall.
Knowledgeable, ability to read stuff, ability to certainly be on the same page more so than in any other positions. Maybe on the X with those back shoulder type reads and all like that. All the things that Boykin's not. I think right now as an X with the Baltimore Ravens.
Right. So I certainly, like I said earlier, I think in Pittsburgh in the NFL now, because the college game can be different. When you're a big guy, you can kind of just dominate these smaller corners that may or may not, make it in the NFL. Most times they don't. But I think in the NFL, you're going to see Boykin as that C receiver, very much in what Claypool's doing right now.
I think you can give him some, obviously you want your wide receivers to be able to move all over the place. If possible, I think he can give you snaps at the X. I just don't think that's that's where his home needs to be. He needs to be home run guy more than anything else. His specialty, I think he's got two routes I think that he really excels at, and that's the slant towards the middle of the field and the corner route and the go route. Three routes in total that I really think that's his specialty there. And we've talked a lot this offseason about the Steelers and their future ability to be able to take the top off coverage a little bit more, a guy that can at least threaten over the top and give you some of those catches more than 20 yards down the field. He is that guy. And if all he comes to Pittsburgh and does is gives you or in one season, because he's only on a contract through 2022, if he can give you 30 to 40 receptions, and 40 might be precedent with him, if he can give you that 30 reception mark as a Z receiver, kind of a part-time Z receiver for you, and put up 8 to 10 of those 20-yard gains down the field, I think that's what you're kind of looking there for there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he'll be a guy that comes in with a lot of vertical shots and kind of some rotational snaps behind Claypool, and you just get another hopefully vertical and downfield threat that's been such an issue the last 2 years, and that's been a variety of reasons. Ben's own issues, the scheme of the offense, guys not stacking and winning vertically. Claypool's issues last year certainly evident, but hopefully Boykin can give you that vertical threat. And you just want to add some talent at receiver, some big guys, and give a new quarterback like Trubisky presumably a chance to succeed. And so with the receiver room looking so shallow after losing Juju and Washington, even McLeod, you sign Olszewski, but he's really primarily a special team return coverage kind of guy. To add hopefully someone more defined as a receiver, although Boykin certainly has not had a great NFL career so far. There's potential there, and it's a low cost, it's a low risk type of move.
Right. And what's the upside in totality with him for the 2022 season? Just what I said, 40 catches. Is that the huge upside with him, with, let's say, 15 of those being explosive plays, maybe 6 touchdowns mixed in there? That kind of outlook for him, is that high side?
Yeah, I think that would be like the extreme ceiling.
Uber high side.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned maybe 30 catches. He averages about 15 yards per catch, gets maybe 3-4 touchdowns, or low red zone, some fades, 1 or 2 go routes that he wins on, and then offers on special teams. If he can do those types of things, I think that's a big win for Pittsburgh at $2.5 million.
Another stat here from the Steelers Depot stats department and Andrew Shaver. 0 drop passes for Boykin on targets of 20 or more yards down the field in both college, 45 of those, and in the NFL, 17 of those, including the postseason. So a guy that, when you throw the football down the field more than 20 yards to him, both in college and NFL, if it gets near him, he gets it. And I think one of the things that Tyler Wise showed out in his breakdown this morning on Steelers Depot is that large catch radius. That's another thing that kind of sticks out about Boykin. A good red zone target, I think, overall in general there. And one other interesting nugget that you'll only get from the Steelers Depot stat department. Including the postseason, 309 career receiving yards and 4 touchdowns have come off play action for Miles Boykin in the NFL. 18 total receptions and he don't have many of them. What's he got total wise for his NFL career?
33.
For his career, 33 receptions, 18 have come off of play action with him for 309 career receiving yards. How many receiving yards does he have in totality?
470. So majority.
And he has 7 or 8 touchdowns. Is that right?
7.
All right. Four of those touchdowns have come off play action. So how about some play action, Alex, when he's on the field?
Certainly going to see that in that play action. Hopefully get a defense to take a step up, and you get that 6'4" dude who runs 4.4 behind the defense and a chance for a one-on-one opportunity. And so I'm sure that's how Baltimore used him quite a bit. The numbers certainly indicate that, and I think Pittsburgh will try to do similar.
Props to Tyler Wise and Andrew Shaver. Man, here we are, not even 12 hours since this move has happened, and we had this kind of information to look at in all 22 and the breakdowns and all like that. Nobody now. Just to make it clear here, neither one of us are suggesting that Pittsburgh holds a parade today. Is that correct?
Sure, it's a flyer. It's an upside flyer, but this is a guy who caught one pass last year. That's 33 in 3 years, and there's a lot of work to be done. And by no means does this move prevent, nor should it prevent Pittsburgh from adding a receiver in the draft. They still will. They will probably do that within the top 4 rounds minimum, maybe even day one, maybe even day two. I'm not trying to make Boykin something he isn't, but we're just talking about some of the traits and potential and upside. And if it kind of finally clicks, then you might have something there. But again, even his best will be about probably 30 catches this year, barring injury, of course.
I agree. And boy, I like it if several of those include him stretching the field, and if they come off of play action. Is play action still legal in the NFL?
I think they're trying to debate that rule. And Pittsburgh, it isn't, apparently. Okay. But I mean, is it obviously they're a different body type, but it's kind of going to be like the James Washington role this past year, with more special teams value.
Fair enough to say, fair enough to say that potentially an upgrade over James Washington.
Yeah, I think from a talent
as a receiver.
Point. I think Washington wasn't as flashy, wasn't as big, not as fast overall, but was really good at the catch point. How will Boykin look there? I'm not quite sure. I think Boykin probably can stack better because he's just faster overall. But I
don't think you get the contested catch aspect that maybe a Washington gave you.
Yeah, Washington
was
really
trade-off.
Good. Yeah, when I say the Washington rule, I'm talking about like that backup Z receiver play, 300, 400 snaps. Some games he really won't play at all if they want to roll with Claypool. Some games you're going to get more reps of Boykin in there, but kind of really just running a lot of vertical routes, a lot of 9 balls, and a couple of jump ball opportunities. So I'm not calling Boykin Washington in terms of the actual profile. They're pretty different guys in terms of just their overall makeup, but in terms of their role and what that's going to look like offensively, I think it'll be pretty similar.
All right, and boy, could they have they needed another body in that room. With a little bit of an experience there. It's not the end all do all, and as what you said too, in no way, shape, or form does this prevent the team from drafting 1 or even 2 wide receivers this year. But at least it does give you a guy. I think that you can even play him. I think a little bit in the slot if you wanted to. A guy like Boykin there. I don't think he's not going to run away from people after the catch. Break a lot of tackles from that aspect of it. I think he leaves a little bit to be desired after the catch kind of aspect there. But the thing that gets me most excited about him, and it's one of the things, once again, dating back to his college film, is his ability to get over the top of people and be able to stack corners and make the big play down the field. And explosive plays in my book just not enough emphasis can be put on that. And if they can get a guy, once again, that catches 30 balls for them in 2022 with, roughly half of those around, a third of those being explosive plays with 4, 5, 6 touchdowns. And if he can block, oh boy, I mean, you want to talk about a guy that can free up some guys up on the edge for you. Pull up this guy's blocking film alone. And that'll get you excited when it comes in, because he is more than a willing participant when it comes to that as well too. So there are other elements outside of catching the football that he brings to the table, and it'd be interesting to see if he can make. First and foremost, he's got to get himself to week 1.
Sure, that's the biggest thing, and just kind of thinking out loud. Not that he's really competing for a spot in terms of serious, consistent play time, but I wonder if it'll kind of create a little bit of a competition between him and Claypool, Boykin and Claypool, just because they're like similar dudes and they want to try to one-up each other, of course, with teammates at Notre Dame. So maybe just kind of good to bring something out of Claypool now that he's not the only like freak athlete receiver on the roster.
It won't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Kevin Colbert quickly assembling the entire 2018 Notre Dame Fighting Irish offense. So just grabbing all those guys because those were the top 2 receivers that year, Boykin and Claypool. So any other final thoughts there? And again, if it doesn't work out, you got no money, invested in him, essentially nothing guaranteed. And so you just move on from him.
Yeah, just keep him healthy, and, hopefully that hamstring issue that caused him so much problem. He quickly fell out of favor with I think with good reason. Once again, I think in 2020, if you look back at those first 4 or 5 games, he was on the field, quite a bit there. Now, maybe he doesn't get it from an X's and O's standpoint as well, too. And there are some questionable effort plays, I think, in his tape. On top of it, he needs to get those out of his tape pronto. But overall, look, Tyler Wise does a lot of great work for us during the season, especially when it comes to the wide receiver position. So he was the right one, I think, to end up get put on this one. And man, he really went thorough with this overall. And I think people will, from what we just told people on this, if you match that up and go read what Tyler Wise wrote Wednesday morning, you should have a pretty good handle on what Miles Boykin is and is not.
Definitely. And again, please check out that post, sticky top of the page on Steelers Depot. The title of it is Film Room, Miles Boykin, the Steelers' new wide receiver project. And so that's a great article by Tyler, and I would encourage and really ask you guys to please give it a read.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you kind of grade that particular move? Salary and everything.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what number to put on it. I'm not going to call it a 10, but it's a solid, 6. I mean, it's not moving the needle significantly, but it's solid. Like I said, low cost, low risk, decent reward type of signing that I'm certainly not mad about.
Yeah, I'd give it like a 7.25, right around in there.
All right, so that's a pretty granular number on the scale. I respect that. Not the only piece of news though.
Am I a granular person? What would that mean?
I'm not even 100% sure what granular means. Just like very detailed. That's what granular means, right? Okay. That's the word coming to mind. And every time I look up the word granular, I just get like.
You're not gonna make your anal in there, are you?
I really would rather not.
All right.
Let's talk about someone else, not named Miles Boykin. Some other Steelers news yesterday. Boykin not the only headline. Steelers hiring an assistant quarterbacks coach, David Corley, William and Mary alum. Played his college football there, as did Mike Tomlin. Actually was with Pittsburgh back in 2010, coaching quarterbacks as part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship. He also had that role and part of that program with the Panthers last year. He's bounced around quite a bit. A pretty well-traveled man. Has coached at a bunch of different places. He's also played in the CFL. So he's really kind of worn a lot of hats. Last year, he was the running backs coach at Richmond University. So David Corley, the Steelers' new assistant quarterbacks coach, to help out Mike Sullivan.
All right. Now, several people want to look at this several different ways, especially with him being the position tagged to him of being an assistant quarterback coach here. But I think you also have to look at this at the rule enhancements, minority hiring rule enhancement that the league made coming out of the league meetings, which was about right around, I think, a little less than a month ago from right now here. This isn't a slam dunk indication that the Steelers are drafting a quarterback just because they're hiring an assistant quarterbacks coach, correct?
Correct. You can look at this from a couple different perspectives. I think just overall to the quarterback room, only one guy from last year in that room is back for this year. And so you're going to have a lot of turnover there. You are going to have a rookie in some form or fashion. If they don't draft a quarterback in the first round or the second round, they're going to bring in an undrafted free agent or someone like that. You just have a lot of turnover there, a lot of youth, a potential leadership void with Ben gone. And so adding teachers and coaches and leaders in that room, regardless of what happens in the draft, is still going to be important.
Now, did the assistant that they hired earlier in the offseason, just prior to the NFL meetings, I believe that counts, doesn't do the Steelers get credit? I hate to use the word credit, but I mean,
does it satisfy the rule?
Does it satisfy the minority assistant offseason rule? I believe it does. I believe it's kind of grandfathered in there.
My understanding is that it does. They hired Isaac Williams from North Carolina Central to be the assistant offensive line coach. And so I pulled up the article that referenced, because the rule for the NFL this year is that all teams must hire at least one minority offensive coach. And according to the NFL, this is from the article.
Oh,
ESPN.
was it offensive? Did
it has to be offensive.
Okay,
yes.
all right. There you go. All right.
But Williams is, of course, has just an offensive line coach. But it says
Right.
In the article, quote, some teams already have a coach or coaches in similar assistant roles, which will count toward the program, according to the NFL. So I believe Williams already satisfied that, which means that Corley did not have to be brought on. But of course, Corley can also satisfy this rule and be part of this program as well. And so specifically, the NFL wants offensive minority coaches to come in because the whole question, and I think it's actually a really smart move, why are not having many minority head coaches being hired. And I think a big reason for that is because a lot of offensive coaches get hired. You don't see too many defensive coaches get hired as head coaches too often. And so if you have more minority guys on the offensive side of the football, that hopefully will have that kind of trickle up effect. So to me, I believe Williams had already satisfied that, but Corley also does as well.
Now, regardless of the number that's added, and I didn't go this deep because obviously going a different direction with the Boykin thing yesterday and wanting to crawl into his tape and just running behind all day yesterday for some reason. But the league picks up part of the salaries with these hires, and I assume it could be multiple, right?
Yeah, I assume it's not limited to just one, and I believe that maybe Williams and Corley can satisfy that. I mean, Williams was hired before this rule was passed, but again, I think he kind of satisfies that requirement. But Corley, I'm sure does as well.
So why wouldn't you add, another coach when you can, especially if it's being funded by the NFL, right?
Right. And the bottom line is, I mean, regardless of who satisfied the rule and who doesn't, I mean, he's the coach with the Steelers now. What's his role going to be? What's the impact going to be? Who's this guy all about? Those are, to me, the most important questions. We're not really as much, does it check the boxes the NFL is looking for? Because I'm sure Pittsburgh has done that.
So there's new news there.
But yeah, that guy's traveled a worn a lot of different hats. Hasn't worked with quarterbacks specifically too much in his career, but you do like guys that have those diverse backgrounds that been running back coaches and wide receivers coaches, and quarterback coaches, and have played the game. Just kind of bring a different perspective. And it's really interesting, Dave, because a couple of years ago they didn't have a quarterback coach at all, and now they got two of them. And so I think having coaches and leaders and teachers at that position, the most important position in football, the most important position of all sports, is really critical. So I'm not mad at this move one bit.
Yeah, I think I'd have 4 or 5 guys in that room.
Yeah. And if they do draft a rookie and a first-round guy, then that could be maybe someone, Corley, that really works with one-on-one. Is that rookie presumably sits most, if not all, his first year.
All right. And obviously has ties back to William and Mary, where Tomlin obviously is an alum. And didn't he go through Army at some point and didn't it wasn't at the same time, but didn't Mike Sullivan have some time at Army?
Yeah, I think he was in the Army, I want to say, but that was his recent job before coming over from Pittsburgh. Let's see, on Corley's Wikipedia page, 2017, he was the receivers coach there. I don't know exactly.
So a lot of people probably knew a lot of people is what I'm getting at,
Sure.
These things usually have ties. I mean, maybe not necessarily back to being on the same staffs, which obviously wasn't the case here, but some people knew some people that it's not hard to draw some links back to those two programs, specifically with Mike Sullivan and Mike Tomlin there. And I have a feeling that they knew quite a bit about David before they hired him.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's fair. And also Tyler Wise, a receiver guy, mentioned Corley was Penn State's receiver coach in 2018. That was Jahan Dotson's first year there. So if you want to draw any sort of potential connections there, it's not the strongest, but certainly it is, I think, a connection worth mentioning. There's one.
All right.
So that is the move on Corley. Anything else, Dave, you want to talk about from a Steelers news standpoint? I think we covered the two most important things. Anything else here coming to mind? I have a pro day recap. I kind of took all of our pro day tracker information finally and put it together in a more digestible format, breaking it down based on where Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin were at, where the positional coaches were at, where the coordinators were at, where the scouts were at, to kind of make it an easier read than the sometimes kind of jumbled up pro day tracker.
All right. I think you had a new development, a new spotting. Did you not?
I did a minor one. Mark Gorsek at Tennessee. Tennessee was one of those places that I hadn't found anyone yet, and I tried to go back and look at some of the big colleges that I hadn't written anyone down. And so Gorsek was at Tennessee, an area scout. So not, I would have preferred seeing a positional coach there, but I did at least check that box that Gorsek was at Tennessee.
All right. We have had problems identifying a lot of position coaches this year. Are
they there and we're not seeing them, or are they not there at all? I mean.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, normally I think we are able to usually find a few more sightings than we have had this year. And another thing very disappointing is, once again, we hit on this the other day and I think today is the last day for visits, for pre-draft visits. And, Malik Willis, I think, is in town today. One of two players I think that we know are in town today, but very disappointed that we're not going to have, it's looking like we're not going to have a full list when it comes to pre-draft visitors, Alex.
Yeah, it looks like we'll know about half that list. We have 15 locations for positional coaches this year, so it's not terrible. Okay. Now, some of those guys were accompanying Colbert and Tomlin as well, for whatever that's worth. We don't have as many like solo positional coaches stuff, which is a little more interesting to me, but it's a healthy amount. And I don't know. I think we have as much information about pro day tracking as any team, in the NFL that's not the actual team themselves. I think we cover it pretty well, best we can.
Do you think, what do you think about the possibility of at least 3 players coming out of colleges that Kevin Colbert was at this year?
Well, you're going to get in the first round. So there's one. We'll get 2 more. I mean, Colbert was at 13 schools this year. The most we've tracked, and we've been tracking this since 2017. So now some of it was, places that were close to each other.
Duke.
And, yeah, I mean, so, but still well-traveled, a lot of work.
What happened to the Suns last night?
Devin Booker got hurt, man. Hamstring injury. They had bad transition defense, and Ingram put on a heck of a show. So credit to New Orleans.
I watched it up until about into the third quarter there, and it looked like the Suns were starting to run away from it. Then I turned it back on. I was doing some work and watched some film and turned back to it, and then they were behind.
Yeah, well, Booker got hurt, I think, around that time, third quarter, okay. I want to say, with a hamstring. So hopefully he can play game 3. But yeah, with Colbert, I mean, 13 schools, a lot of talent, a lot of the schools he went to, Georgia, Cincinnati, Bama, LSU, etc. I would say the odds are pretty decent, but it's obviously hard to say anything with certainty.
All right. And unfortunately, once again, going to be very disappointed that we don't finish out that list, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Do have a new Steelers what they look for study that has gone up since we last spoke on safeties for the first time ever. We will do a what they look for study on safeties. And honestly, I was surprised by this one multiple times throughout my research because the metrics for the safeties weren't nearly as athletic as I thought they might be. I would say, generally speaking, when Pittsburgh drafts a safety high, first 2 rounds, they want a really hyper athlete. When you talk about the late day 3 picks, the athleticism requirements seem to fade. But still, despite all those, I think, pretty minimal thresholds, only one safety checked every single box in our study, and that was the guy we've talked about before, Nick Cross from Maryland. Who had a great workout, and I think it's going to be a day 2 pick, probably round 3, but I wouldn't even discount him in round 2. So Nick Cross is a name we should really consider in all of our mock drafts.
And Mike Tomlin knows a thing or two about that Maryland program, does he not?
Right, and he was Dino Tomlin's roommate at Maryland, so even more information to know about him, I'm sure.
There you go. One guy that did not make that list and did not even come to what do you put next? Was it the 1 or 2 boxes away?
1 box away.
Is Lewis Seen, and it actually I researched this. It's Seen.
Is it? Okay.
Pronounced Seen. A bit surprising that he didn't make the list, right?
Yeah, let's see where he missed. I know he missed in weight because he was underweight at 199, but he plays a lot. He hits like he's 220. Did not bench and did not participate in the agility drills. So he missed for weight and also because he didn't work out in a couple of the categories we look for.
All right.
But still someone I would certainly be considering at number 20. If it's not quarterback, his exclusion here is not going to take him off the list. Guys who were 1 box away that I think are really interesting for Pittsburgh: Tyson Anderson from Toledo, Jaquan Brisker from Penn State, and Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. Hamilton missed only because he did not participate in the bench. I'm guessing he would have hit that mark had he attempted it.
Yeah, I would think so as well.
And, the question is, could he fall? Could he be that draft day guy that falls? I still don't think he will, but I won't say there's no chance of that happening because it sounds like he's going to be in that 10 to 15 range. It just takes one or two things happening for him to slip down a couple extra spots.
All right.
Dave, you mentioned this, I think on maybe the podcast, I know in the live stream as well, about the ESPN draft matchup show that finally got out of the 4 a.m. time slot. It was on 9:30 last night with Matt Bowen, Greg Cosell, and Sal Pal. As you mentioned before we started recording, too short of a show, but really good information there still.
Yeah, look, and I think there was some confirmation in there, and as you would expect with these kind of major media shows, that they accentuate the positive more than anything else there, and they did so. And boy, 30 minutes went by in a blur. I mean, they tackled top four to quarterbacks, I think, maybe in total. Then went on to the edge rushers, and then that's it there. But they great breakdown they had on Kenny Pickett by Greg Cosell and Bowen highlighting the accuracy with a guy like Matt Corral there, but and then they looked at some things that obviously that Malik Willis did. I mean, overall, for a 30-minute show, I don't see how you can complain on that. It's just the kind of thing that, boy, you'd like to see about 30 minutes of, or not 30 minutes, another hour and 30 minutes worth of it to get a little bit more deep and maybe get into some of the negative that comes along with that there. But hopefully people tuned in for that. I'd like it to be longer.
Yeah, no, I felt like they had to kind of go through, just show one or two plays of a guy and then move on to the next one. And by the time they were done with the quarterbacks, there were 10 minutes left and they hit the defensive lineman, I think, quickly and they had to wrap things up. So that was disappointment, but great information. Those guys are super intelligent and I think said some of the things we've talked about as well.
Yeah, I don't think that I learned anything hugely new coming out of that, but there was some confirmation in there on certain aspects.
I did like their breakdown of the backside throw that Willis had. There was the trip side, and that was taken away by the 4/3 coverage, and so they went backside and worked against the safety and threw that, I think, long post. I forget who the team was, but it kind of showed that
I think it was
Willis.
Wasn't it UT Chattanooga, wasn't it, or Middle Tennessee won?
I'm not sure. I don't remember if they said who the team was, but just kind of showed, at least, not that it's the most advanced progression in the world, but just understanding the overall coverage structure and, and showing off the arm as well.
All right.
Dave, you wanted to kind of play a quick game of some over-unders on NFL draft projections and lines and all those types of things. So we'll have a crack at it.
All right. Looking Middle Tennessee. It was the game against Middle Tennessee. Okay. I'm almost positive that was the footage because I had seen that play before there. Look, real quick, over-unders and draft position is something that kind of intrigues me at this time of year of where the betting lines are, where they think several of these guys will go overall. And one of the ones that jumped out at me more than anything, I think, is the draft position for Desmond Ridder. And especially the line overall, it's -20 on both sides of this line of the over-under line on him. And that number is 30.5. So the question then becomes, do you think that Desmond Ridder will be drafted within the first 30 picks of the 2022 NFL draft? And I think the gut reaction from most people out there, whether they're educated on these quarterback positions or not, maybe there's just enough where they catch enough of the mainstream reports and all like that, is to take the under here and think that it would be a slam dunk that Desmond Ridder would be drafted within the first 30 picks. Is that kind of your initial thought on this?
Yeah, it's so hard to gauge. It's so messy and muddy and unpredictable and teams trading up. There were those factors to consider as well, the back half of round one. But I am more so in the camp of I think he goes in the top 30 than him going outside the top 30.
Say it again?
I think he will be drafted within the first 30 picks.
Okay.
I think he'll be a top 30 player.
I don't know. My thoughts on the tape makes me think I want to take the over there.
Yeah, but I mean, Rader apparently has really earned those high marks for the way he's carried himself in terms of his football IQ, his meetings with teams, and those intangibles are more important for the quarterback position than any other position on the field. Not to exclude the tape, but I think there are teams that do like the tape that aren't as worried about the accuracy as we are, and I think he's really endeared himself well to coaches and GMs.
All right, Kenny Pickett, over under 10.5.
I mean, it's really like, what do you think Carolina's going to do? And maybe Seattle as well. There is some buzz that Carolina's not as interested in taking a quarterback as 6 as people think. And whatever you think of the slip of the tongue from Ben McAdoo yesterday saying that Sam Darnold's their starter, what do you read into that? I don't follow the Panthers enough to really get a good feel for that. I really don't know. Like I said, quarterbacks.
What's your gut think there? Over under 10.5.
My gut, and I can't really explain, is that I think he goes outside the top 10.
Okay.
So I guess what is that, the over?
That would be the over.
The over. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
My gut tells me take the under 10.5 there. Malik Willis, 9.5. These come courtesy of betonline.ag, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you got Seattle, you got Atlanta. Does he go to Atlanta? It seems to be almost a line there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a great feeling either way. I'll take the under on that, I suppose.
My gut now at this point has the under on this as well too.
Okay, and you're thinking like he'd go to Atlanta or Carolina?
Yeah, all of a sudden I've been thinking more and more about Atlanta in this, and I think we mentioned the other day, whether it be the live stream or the podcast, about they might be more concerned about putting butts in the seats, and selling some season tickets, because they could use a lot on that roster other than that, right? A ton more, but would they go the route of, they obviously have the quarterback in Marcus Mariota, at least to start this season here. How concerned will they be about adding, a quarterback that might not see the field until 2023 with their first round draft pick, when there's so much more that they need to do just to be able to compete more in that division of theirs this year?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think it makes a lot of sense there. He would be able to sit this year behind, maybe sits a couple games till Mariota inevitably gets hurt, and then Willis has to take the field. But that would be a sensible fit.
Jordan Davis, 14.5 over under.
I don't have the whole draft order in front of me about where teams are picking, but I think we'll be taken around there. So you could go slightly over, slightly under. I'll go slightly under. But I think we'll be in that top 15 to 17 range.
I'm with you on that one there. Kyle Hamilton, 10.5.
Yeah, the reports seem to indicate that he's quote unquote falling a bit here. Like I said earlier, probably that 10 to 15 range, but I still think if he went top 7, 7 to 10, it wouldn't surprise me either. I don't know. I mean, again, I have to look at kind of the list of teams and needs, and it's so hard to predict, but I guess I'll go over, but I think he's not going to go to 20.
My gut tells me to go over that number as well, too. One last one in here that caught my eye. Dax Hill, safety out of Michigan. Over under 28.5. Interesting number.
Feels like it's going to be the under. He'll go earlier than that. It's kind of my feel for things.
Okay. For some reason, I feel like an over is in line there. One other one, Jahan Dotson, we mentioned a little while ago there, 32.5. So first round or not first round, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love that guy. I think he's one of my draft crushes this year. I've always been impressed by his ability to play big. I love the route runners, the guys who create separation naturally. They don't have to try to win with just their size and physicality, and Dotson is able to do that. So he's one of my dudes. I think in a deep receiver class, certainly he could go within those last 5 picks first round, but I think he'll be a round 2 guy.
All right. I will go round 2 as well, too, with him. So I would take the over on that. All right, I just wanted to add a little bit different element to it to kind of get away of not having to talk a lot of quarterbacks today there. And I'm always intrigued kind of by these over and under lines there. And it'd be interesting to see how much more they shift. You buying anything of maybe Baker Mayfield to who is it? Panthers?
I'm not sure what the compelling reason for them to do that is, other than just being desperate for a quarterback and someone who can play right away. So maybe that is the reason.
And why would you add another 18 million?
Yeah.
I mean, they already got Sam Darnold. They're on the hook for that. It's guaranteed money unless they can deal that off as, and who in their right mind is going to take that? Not Aaron. What I didn't call him Aaron Donald. Did I? Sam Donald.
No, you call him Sam. Yeah.
Who in their right mind is going to take that salary off the hands of the Panthers?
Yeah, I think they're kind of stuck with Darnold, so nobody. So who knows? I mean, maybe it happens. I think I said on Monday during the live stream was asked about this. My joke for what happens with Baker is not my monkey, not my circus. So I don't really care what Baker does, what they do with him. That's their problem.
All right. We got some breaking news here. Steelers training camp will return to Saint Vincent College.
Whoa, let's go.
All
Dude,
right.
you know how happy I am to hear that news. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it sounds like you want to cry.
A little bit. It's a little emotional. It'll be really emotional when I go back there. It's been a couple of years. Latrobe, that's good for the town. It's good for the restaurants and the hotels that have really suffered not only through COVID, but of course, not having training camp there. This is huge news, Dave. This is a win today for sure.
All right, some good news to wind down this show, and I know you're excited to get back out there, and who knows, maybe we can get maybe Josh even to join you out there a couple of days this year as well too. So big news to start winding down this Wednesday show with, huh?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that. Wasn't sure when, I assumed they were going to be back this year. I wasn't sure if an announcement was going to come, though, in the summer, whenever they actually had a schedule out. So we don't know schedule. We don't know dates. That won't be until June probably. But yeah, just really great news. Really, really thrilled to hear that.
Absolutely. So that will obviously be a main topping point throughout the rest of the day here when it comes to the Steelers. And good thing that news broke before we ended up this show here. So let's see. Should we get to a few reader emails here and close this thing out?
Yep, let's do it, Dave.
All right, let's look, see what we have here from Jonathan Mason. Figured I'd send in a question with it being somewhat a slower week news-wise. Have y'all ever seen this much disparity with one quarterback class other than seeing Willis the most as number one? I've seen any of the other four listed as number one by different draft people. He says, I know there's some buzz about Ritter being the guy at 20 if Willis goes early. I know y'all aren't high on him, but have you seen enough from him to see him being a starter in the NFL? He says Nate Tice has him listed as his number one in the class and even has him graded higher than he did Mac Jones. He said he points to pocket movement, progression, communication, style of offense that he played, and downplays the accuracy issues, though he wishes he had more of a live arm. Says he has Dak Prescott-ish ceiling, but sees him at the least as Ryan Tannehill. He says, anyways, thanks for all the great content and shows leading up to the draft. Jonathan, I mean, depends on what you want the narrative to be with him at this point, man. If you like Nate Tice's evaluation on him and think that that's the proper one, and what most teams think, then there's a potential of him maybe coming out of this class as the number one. I mean, there's a lot of experience, obviously, with Ritter, a lot of experience reading stuff, a lot of experience winning. That's something that they mentioned on the Edge matchup show last night, was just the fact that all the wins that Ritter has at the college level, he has seen a lot at the college level. But one of the things that I keep going back to with him is arm strength and accuracy. Really has me downplaying him the most. So is there a lot of to say, is there this much disparity in one quarterback class that I've ever seen? Ever is a long time. And all I can really look at is recency and what I'm doing right now and the work I've done on this class. And there is a lot of disparity in this class. And that's really been the talking point, man, going back since I first started turning on the tape with this stuff right around Senior Bowl time. And I don't think you'll get too many arguments in that. So by no way, shape, or form am I going to say my evaluation of this quarterback class and ranking is it, and that's how they're going to come out of this. So, you can take what I say, you can take what Alex says, you can take what our other guys on the podcast have said, and kind of form, hopefully you're watching tape in this. That's the most important part of it all. And then kind of form your own opinion on this. So, look, I'm definitely going to be interested to see where Ritter goes in this draft overall. Not that that's any kind of indictment on what he will be overall, but there are people all over the place in this class.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway of this quarterback class. It is all over the place, and I'm not going to be upset or stomp my feet at any one guy's rankings. Our own depot staff rankings, each person's are all over the map, and completely different. If you ask, two different people who they have in their top five. Is this the most divisive quarterback class? Like you said, forever's a long time. I think back to 2013 with EJ Manuel and Geno Smith, and that class was, I think, worse and maybe even more polarizing and stuff like that. So I don't think it's, in that category, but it's certainly not as strong as it has been last year and in the past couple of years, and certainly other marquee years, the Andrew Luck years, for example. So yeah, it's muddy, it's messy. We don't know what's going to happen. And if people want to put Ritter or any quarterback in any spot, I mean, I'm not gonna get too mad over it.
Yeah, look, and we've said this several times. I mean, if there's one position that's most definitely not a science, it's the quarterback position. And I think more than anything, I'm looking forward to seeing how some of my study this year pays off when looking at this class, I don't know, 3 years from now, because that's how long it's going to take to probably cycle through a lot of this stuff to see how some of these guys, what they might become and all like that. And it's a huge learning process, I think, overall, when it comes to obviously the most important position, in my opinion, on a football team there. So I'm not going to, if you tell me some guy, Nate Tice has, one of these guys ranked so much higher than the rest of us, I would believe it, because people are all over the map when it comes to this thing.
Yeah, and like I said, Ritter is, and I get the allure of all these quarterbacks. You can make a case for why any of these top five quarterbacks could succeed. I don't see somebody whose traits are so catastrophically bad that they're not going to work out. I remember watching Blaine Gabbert and just seeing how bad his pocket presence was and saying, I don't think this guy really has a chance to work in really any scenario, and it ended up being true. And in this class, I don't think any guy has that super negative flaw that's going to almost certainly derail his career. It's just a bit of a flavor thing, a bit of an upside thing, a bit of a projection type of thing. And that's why I have the rankings the way that I personally have them.
As much as we've talked about this quarterback class this year, inevitably people will come back and say, well, you guys said this guy was going to be this. I mean, I foresee a lot of this stuff trying to be thrown back at us on this, but I think we've tried to make it as clear as we can in this, that our evaluation, really I think the only guy that kind of slam dunk between at least me and Alex that we are more down on than anybody else is probably Ritter. And overall, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of our rankings, we agree at the top. We both have Willis number 1. We agree at the bottom. We both had Willis 5. I think the guys in the middle we had ranked differently. So I think that's the commonality in our rankings.
George Herreras writes in, hey guys, George in VA here. He says, is Willis more of a running quarterback or a quarterback that can run? Meaning, does he look to be runner after one read, or will he end up being a quarterback looking to be a passer and then utilize his legs as a complementary weapon? Look, here's the thing with Willis. Willis is got so much more development to do as far as reading defenses and becoming more of a pocket that can, a quarterback that can play in the pocket, and I wouldn't even call Willis a passer just yet. I would call Willis more of a thrower right now, and that's another aspect of his game that I think we should see progression on at the NFL level.
Can you define that, but just for people that are wondering, passer versus thrower, what that difference is?
He doesn't throw wide. He doesn't anticipate throws. He doesn't anticipate a lot of his throws. He's not a passer of the football, meaning passing to, I think, more of a spot and calculated passer. He throws the football to guys that are open. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
He needs to become more of a passer than he is a thrower. If that, now he's obviously a very good running the football there, but once again, going back to Willis and the traits that you look at him, is it his ability to throw the football as it is now, his ability to run with the football as it is now, his ability to extend plays, those kind of things there. The traits that he has is a lot more exciting than the actual tape that he has out there at the quarterback position, if that makes sense there. And to me, that's the kind of stuff that you're betting on him, is what maybe he, a good quarterback coach, a good staff, a good, teacher might be able to make him a better quarterback in a couple of years, a lot better quarterback than he is now.
Yeah, I think to answer the original question about, is he is he a one read guy and then take off? To a degree, I think he'll have to work on that. He's just so darn athletic and so good running the football. It's easy for him to do because he knows he's going to succeed. I actually had meant to post the clip I think Jim Nagy did from the old 22 view. I was watching, Alex Wright from UAB against Liberty, and I watched the one play that Willis had in the red zone. Broke like 6 tackles, man, almost scored on an unbelievable type of play. So when you have those kind of traits, it certainly is attractive to take off and run. I do think, though, there are times where he should get more credit for keeping his eyes downfield, because we praised the off-platform throws and throwing on the run and some of those crazy throws he made at Liberty, and that showed that he was still willing to keep his eyes downfield and make some of those, crazy throws off platform, rolling to his right and things like that. So there'll be work to do for sure about being more selective and just going through reads and progressions in general will need work. But I don't think he's I thought Sam Howell was more egregious about taking off and running this past year than Willis was in the tape that I viewed.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Larisha writes in, evidently not happy that we missed over one of the emails previously sent here. Larisha writes in, hi guys, let's see, please see my email below an additional question. Not sure if you didn't see it or if I wrote something inappropriate. Look, sometimes we just don't get to stuff, unfortunately, and sometimes I do miss stuff in my email box here. Hi guys, great job as always. Dwayne Haskins passing hit me hard. So young, life gone too soon, very tragic. Appreciate each day. I ran across a draft profile of Patrick Mahomes, and boy did they miss. As you and Alex always say, quarterback selection is not a science, but based on the Mahomes profile, do you see similarities between Malik Willis or any other potential quarterback? And goes on, I don't know where this which specific, but has a number 10 overall, I guess, ranking on Patrick Mahomes, grade C-, and the analysis on that from somebody calling Mahomes a project is a major understatement. He's nowhere near ready to play in the NFL, and honestly, he may never be. The report says between his inconsistent accuracy due to poor mechanics, his tendency to bail from clean pockets, and his lack of field vision, he's going to leave as many big plays on the field as he creates. This was a risky pick. Someone said this was a synopsis, evidently, of the Kansas City Chiefs of Patrick Mahomes' selection at 10th overall. I don't know what Larissa is wanting me to say there, other than, we all miss, and I don't
But I
know
think it was
who.
a question of, is there a parallel to Malik Willis based off of the Mahomes view at the time?
From what I remember overall, Mahomes is a lot more polished quarterback coming out of Texas Tech than Malik Willis is coming out of Liberty.
I think to a degree he was. Obviously played against higher competition. But I see the parallels for sure. I mean, Mahomes out of structure kind of guys, and the question was, will that work in the NFL? But I think Mahomes, not that Willis is going to necessarily become the next Patrick Mahomes, but just Mahomes has helped prove that, those out of structure guys can work and those guys can thrive if you kind of just take the reins off a little bit, let those guys, play free and work with them and play to those strengths and play to those traits. So that's what any good coach should do, is play to quarterbacks, a player's strengths, and maximize and focus on those abilities. And so I think Mahomes has helped open the door for guys who play like Willis to work in the NFL. So I understand the question. I see the parallels there.
Another question in here. Also, if they draft Connor Hayward, is there a potential to draft a running back, or would he be a backup running back? Look, if they drafted, unless they do something that materializes in more picks for this team, more than they have now, 7. I'd be really surprised if they drafted both Connor Hayward and another more truer running back. The attraction with Connor Hayward to me overall is you get a little of everything in there. You do get a guy that could potentially carry the football to some degree. He's not going to be a guy that you hand the football to, 10, 12, 13 times a game. I think in maybe once or twice at maybe most. He is a guy that you could obviously use as a fullback, a guy you could split out and all like that. So I guess the short answer to the question would be is if they drafted Connor Hayward, is there still potential to draft a running back?
Well, I would answer that and say that Hayward would not be like the backup running back on this team. He could run the ball in certain situations. He obviously played running back in Michigan State, but he wouldn't be drafted really for that purpose. It would be more of that versatile H-back type of role as a blocker, as a receiver in the play action boot game. Certainly, potential four-face core special team kind of guy, someone who can be used even a bit vertically and has good hands, and just a kind of a football player overall. But he wouldn't really, to me, fulfill that need and that quest to find a true number 2 runner.
All right. So to answer the question, is there still potential to draft a running back if they drafted Connor Hayward? That's the question.
Yeah, it would feel like, because the running back would probably come before Hayward, because Hayward would be probably one of your 2 7th round pick selections. And that would feel a bit like a luxury at that point when there were some other positions that you could be addressing. But I still stand by the fact that this team should be looking at a backup running back, because at number 2 spot, in terms of a true defined runner, Snell's a good special teams player, but does not offer much as an actual running back. Needs to be addressed and focused on. And I'll have an article in the morning for what they look for when it comes to running backs. And there are 4 running backs who check every single box. So I think it is something you have to look at on day 3.
All right, Larissa also writes, and also, Dave, I heard on Monday's Q&A that you're winding down with the show. Why? We need you here forever with Alex. What's going on? I'm sad. Look, at some point, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next week, but I need to start slowing myself down from a health standpoint and everything along with it. I am quite older now, and the experiences that I've been through in my life on top of it have made me even older, unfortunately. And I'm not in the best of health still on top of it. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Something at some point will happen where probably I won't be on this show and Alex and somebody else will be. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't know when that is. Alex and I haven't talked much more in depth other than saying that at some point I need to reduce.
Yeah, I think that's still going to be a little ways away. Like you said, not today, not tomorrow. And that's one reason why we've certainly tried to bring on some other guests as well. Josh and Tom and Owen and Jonathan, all those guys, because we want to start getting people used to potentially some new voices. But take it day by day is kind of, I think, our approach.
I am one that squarely falls into the category of day to day. Dave and Alex from Pastor Joe Green really dig into draft and pre-draft coverage. The team's best to date. Please take a quick moment to lay out the starting defense and offense as it sits right now, assuming that Colbert's statements are truthful and that all starting positions are in place other than strong safety, base defense starters, nickel defense starters, dime defense starters. Now a bit tougher starting offensive starters are in place. Are we still predominantly 11 personnel team, or if all offensive starters are in place, are we now predominantly 12 or 21 personnel team? Thanks for all you do. Pastor Joe, look, it is April 20th right now. We still have the draft to go and all like that. I mean, we're going to be answering these questions, as we go on into this. So I'll be honest with you, I have no want to kind of answer where the starters are right now on this thing, especially ahead of the draft.
Yeah.
Alex? I mean,
no.
Have at it if you want to. It's a futile exercise if you ask me right now.
Yeah, I get asked this stuff occasionally, and I don't think about it too much because the draft is going to shape so much and change so much. And even then, it'll be tough to predict and project because you're going to have new pieces, especially along the offensive line and rookies and things like that. So that's a long answer to begin with, even if I knew it top to bottom. And with the draft coming up, it's going to change so much. I'm not really that interested in trying to answer those things right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, the draft's going to answer a lot of these kind of questions, and is it going to monumentally shift some things from where they sit now? No, but once again, it is April, and we're going to be talking a lot about this a lot more as the offseason. Let's wait till after the draft is what I'm trying to say.
And even post-draft, look at last year. They added Melvin Ingram. They signed Trey Turner because everything happened with the Castro. Like, I really don't think about the construction of what things could look like until right before training camp begins, because so much could happen with injuries and who knows what could occur. So I don't start trying to formulate those things too much until like we really get close to training camp. And then, I obviously get into training camp and see how things look.
Mark Chapman writes in, give Boykin and Pickens, maybe it's supposed to say get Boykin and Pickens and let's see the bodies on the floor. Let's roll. And I'm obviously talking about George Pickens. I tell you, Mark, the one thing that sticks out on the tape with both Miles Boykin and George Pickens out of Georgia is those two are not afraid to put hands on defenders. So, both are now, I guess a good conversation to have is Pickens just a better version of Boykin? Pickens played a lot of X too, did he not?
Yeah, I know he moved around some. He's a more fluid player. Would I compare their games 1-to-1? Probably not, is my first instinct to that. But I get kind of the parallels of kind of the freaky athlete, physical blocker type of guys that you're referencing.
And raw. I mean, Pickens does I think a better job of obviously he's got more of that kind of fluid Martavis Bryant, I guess, kind of aspect to him more so than Boykin does. But you look at their kind of history, they're both kind of raw players or Boykin obviously was raw coming out. Pickens has an element of rawness to him too. Both primarily played the X in college. Both are physical kind of receivers. Both stretch the field in college. Is Pickens just an upgrade of Boykin?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I have to think about that some more, but I mean, if you want to have Pickens and Boykin on the team, then I'm not mad about that.
I think that's where Mark's going with this.
Right.
So,
right. The question with Pickens is, do you take George Pickens at 20?
I don't.
Yeah. And then I don't think he'll be there at 52.
I like him, but I don't take him at 20. No.
What's the biggest reason for not taking him at 20? The depth of the class?
That rawness aspect of him.
Yeah.
there. I'd much rather have him a little bit later if I could get him.
Yeah. The question is, will he fall to 52? It's always tough to project, obviously. And I've always said, the depth of these receiver classes push these guys down, and all these guys can go top 40, but I don't get the sense Pickens will be on the board at 52. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, usually there's some guys that fall and you don't think they're going to fall, and that's just kind of what happens. So it's possible. But my feeling right now is that he will not be there at 52.
All right. That'd be interesting over under on him.
Is there an over under on him somewhere?
I don't think there. Yeah, I could probably find one if I dug hard enough there, but I don't know. My gut tells me he'll be on the board there at that time. For some reason.
Trying to see if I can find. I'm just going to pull up random articles and try to see if I can see where maybe he's gauged at.
Draft.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up one right now. I don't know if it's going to have one. It looks like 36.5 over under, according to some random website.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's one of the one I'll be watching closely because I really don't know exactly where he's going to end up. I think it'll be in that 40-ish range, maybe 30 to 40. I had to guess.
All right, Jake Lyman writes in. I just have to say to you, Dave and Alex, I've been so excited for the draft coming up and being caught up on the Steelers Depot content. I tried to listen to another Steelers podcast from another site. He says, after having to shut it off 5 minutes in, I just wanted to shout out you and all of the Steelers Depot crew. The draft prospect coverage and scouting is absolutely unmatched. He says, I've been a listener for years, and after seeing what else is out there for Steelers content, I'm glad I found you guys. All I know is about the upcoming draft season is that we are in uncharted waters. I would love to see them trade up for Malik Willis, he says, but no matter what it is, to be the most exciting draft that I can remember. Sincerely, Jake from Massachusetts. Thanks for the kind words there, Jake. Look, one thing that Alex and I and Matthew, really the kind of the core of what we've been doing for years is we've always wanted to try to pride ourselves in putting out the most accurate, most educated content out there that we can on as much as objective as possible as well too. And a lot of the people that we brought on, really all the people that are still on the site right now, are ones that believe if they're in the draft side of things, we know that these guys are watching tape, and there is no substitute for watching tape. Period. And I think if to circle back to kind of what we kind of started the show talking about with Miles Boykin, you don't want to believe anything I have said about Miles Boykin or Alex and all. Go read what Tyler Wise has written. Tyler Wise does not give one iota care about what Alex and I think about Miles Boykin. He has gone into the tape and formed his own opinion on that, and we encourage people to do that, obviously, on topic, because there is no right or wrong 100% of the time tape analysis on here. But you can bet for sure Tyler Wise has watched probably, 100 plays, or if not more, on Miles Boykin as part of him putting this together. It's easy, I think, when you listen and read some of these other, podcasts and sites that people are not educated on a lot of the topics and or tape on there. And we are not going to have person on this show or writing for the site that we don't feel is passing along, the best knowledge possible.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I think that's what we strive for, to try to go that extra couple of layers that other people won't. And I think that's why we've been able to hang around and I think thrive the way that we have. So yeah, again, can't recommend enough. Check out that article from Tyler, and also shout out to what has to be Miles Boykin's dad for posting some clips on YouTube of like not even just routes that he ran, not even targets. It was the weirdest thing on YouTube, but that certainly helped us and made this process a bit quicker to find clips and plays of Miles Boykin, even when he was not targeted. So the internet is a wonderful place, Dave, and we thank whoever posted random clips of Boykin all 22.
It's like that guy somewhere in the cosmic element, all this knew that we would wind up needing some of that kind of specific tape, because thanks to NFL Game Pass, or no thanks to NFL Game Pass, all 22 tape from 2020. I mean, it'd been fine if Miles Boykin had played a lot of snaps in 2021, because to some of the two, although we can get our hands on 2020 all 22 tape of the Ravens, it's on international versions, and it's harder getting that stuff out in a short period of time to these guys, unless it had been 2021 tape. I could have turned around some of this stuff a lot quicker for all 22 tape. And I guess that's first world Steelers Depot problems that we're talking about here. But long story short, it was quite comical that somebody on YouTube had some all 22 cut-ups that matched exactly what Tyler Wise needed for a short notice type situation there. And aren't we blessed?
Yeah, so that worked out well. But again, I know Tyler stayed up super late getting the article done. So shout him out on Twitter if you see him.
Right.
Yeah, read it. Shout him out.
The best compliment you can give is by going to the site and reading that post and commenting on it that way there. Chris Warren writes in, hey guys, I absolutely love the Miles Boykin signing. He says, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, being from Indy, and I know what this guy can do. He is not especially a good route runner, he says, but he didn't have the best wide receiver coach at Notre Dame. He is a great blocker, and he has the aptitude to learn the route tree. He says, do you guys think that Kevin Colbert might have partially considered the additional negotiating leverage that Deontay Johnson has right now based on how thin the wide receiver room is? Personally, I think they would have jumped on Boykin regardless, but the thought did occur to me. Chris, I will tell you this. Adding Boykin as to some sort of negotiating leverage to Deontay Johnson would be a very firm-fitting tinfoil hat. My level of tinfoil hat. And even I don't buy that as being any element to this, because Deontay Johnson's market value is Deontay Johnson's market value, regardless if even the Steelers had signed Alex Kozora or claimed Alex Kozora off waivers to play the wide receiver position there.
I gave good effort.
You're a very high effort guy. That underlines you don't take plays off, Alex.
Yeah, I don't offer anything else, but I'll work my little butt off.
You are a team player. You don't take plays off. High effort, high motor guy. There are some height, weight, speed.
I don't check the what they look for study.
Yeah, you got a lot of boxes unchecked there. You would be a captain, so you have that. I think your team captain kind of aspect, and that's very important. But back to the whole. I don't want to push Alex off to the side here, but no negotiating. This is not a negotiating aspect to the whole Deontay Johnson thing. This is a guy that is easy to draw lines back to in Miles Boykin there, and the wide receiver room is thin. They could use a player such as Boykin in that room right now, at least for the rest of the summer there. So I think you are reading a little bit much more into it than is there from the leverage aspect there. But everything else that you said, Chris Warren, look, I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you probably nodded your head a bunch for what Alex and I had said earlier in this show, and you probably have nodded your head a bunch if you've read the article by Tyler Wise as well too. So thanks for the email there.
Boykin had one catch last year. It's not affecting that $18 to $20 million negotiation with Johnson, but this is all about the pre-draft interest, the knowledge, and the comfort of him, and the potential upside of him being 15 yard per catch, 30 reception kind of dude.
Christine Bond, one last one here. Alex, we'll end on a positive note here. Avid and dedicated follower of Steelers Depot from Christine. Dave, you and Alex do an outstanding job each and every day dissecting the Steelers. I have been a Steeler fan since 1957. Yes, I am a senior citizen, and I cried with them through the dark ages of the 50s and the 60s. I read and listen to every piece of info on the Depot. Nice work this year on the draft. I heard yesterday that you, Dave, may be assuming a less public role the next year or so. Somewhat sad to hear that, because you are the driver behind the Depot engine. You provide a wealth of info, background, and knowledge. Alex is also quite a guy. His knowledge is growing every year. I hope he incorporates your detailed knowledge of the cap and also contracts. If I was 40 years younger, I would invite Alex to dinner and chat about the Steelers into the evening. You both do a great job. I will be listening and reading every day. Take care, and God bless both of you. Chris, look, really appreciate those kind words. And we just don't want this to be a surprise to anybody whenever this happens. Now, look, part of what helps keep me sane is doing what I do. The level of what I do it at, even now, has kind of decreased a little bit to some degree. It will probably decrease more. I cannot ever imagine, at least right now, not doing anything related to maybe the podcast or the site. I might be doing just cap and contract stuff as far as the writing goes, and that's it. And then maybe sitting in on a podcast or two to check in on the guys. But look, the beauty, I think, of what I have been able to do over time is to add people like Alex. Alex and Matthew Marksey are two guys that, man, if you wouldn't know any better, we'd think we'd separated at birth from where we think of and cover this team, the Steelers specifically, in all aspects of it. This site would not be what it is right now without Alex and without Matthew Marksey. Plain and simple. Alex knows how to run this site. Alex probably knows this site better than I do right now, to be honest with you. And obviously provides a wealth of info, well-rounded. Matthew knows this site inside and out. We've added guys like Josh Carney, and the development Josh has made just in the last, 2 or 3 years alone, just monumental. He has become like that fourth leg of the chair, if you will, when it comes to the site. We are trying to bring along other people in more larger roles on top of it. So the beauty, I think, of what I'd like to think that I have built at this point is that, I can start taking a lesser role here in the overall quality and output and everything Steelers Depot has been, will continue on through guys like Alex and Josh and Matthew Marksey and all like that. And look, I'm not in the best of health. I don't know how I can tell you people, anything more than that. And I need to concentrate on my health more than I've been able to the last several years.
Yeah, that is the most important thing for all of us. And thank you for all the kind words and from the reader as well. Appreciate all that support. But yeah, it's been really good that I know you've gotten to travel a bit more. I'm sure Tiffany's especially happy about that as well, and just get out in the world and things like that. And so it's good to, we love what we do. We're very grateful for the opportunity that we get to do this every single day and write and talk about football for a living. That's so special and something I couldn't wrap my head around, even 10 years ago. But there has to be some sort of balance, and certainly prioritizing things like health and just spending time with family and friends and all that's important too. So we've really been able to grow the Steelers Depot team with Josh, as you mentioned, and Jonathan and all the guys. And so we want to bring in more people, which I think just, gives different voices, different perspectives, different strengths. And I will say, me trying to learn about the cap the way that Dave does, I better get started quickly, because I will have a mountain to climb there. I don't think I'll ever get to that point, but Dave certainly, I think, will always provide a lens and an opinion on the cap side of things.
Right. Look, I mean, my role is going to decrease, but I will still be around. Heck, I mean, I live for this stuff. You ought to see the conversations we have in direct messages. That alone is enough reason to stay around, just to talk to my own guys about, and boy, they entertain the living, you know what, out of me sometimes. They tickle me to death and on. I love watching tape. I love football. I love sports in general. So it's just, we've got to find a way for me to at least try to be around in the body form for a few more years.
Yeah, that's not going to change. It's just, a bit of a reduced role. And as you said, your role's already reduced a little bit because we've been able to lean on the strengths of other people. So, Dave's not disappearing tomorrow. So don't fret about that.
Not that I know of just yet, but stranger things
we are all
happen.
day to day, I suppose.
Well, I lied. One last one from James writes in, what about Matt Araiza, punter from San Diego State? Keep up the great work on the website and podcast. What do you think about Matt, the phenomenal punter from San Diego State? What round should he be drafted in if he actually is a better punter than the best? James, look, the beauty of what I've been able to do by following Nevada and Carson Strong and all like that, I got to watch a lot of games from that conference and all, and obviously knew a lot about Matt Araiza from San Diego State, dating back last year and a half or so and all like that. Phenomenal. Boy, you want to talk about a guy that can flip the field, and he can do it all. He can kick off, he can place kick, he can all of it. So do I think he's going to end up with the Steelers? No. But I will not be surprised if he's drafted, I don't know, 4th, 5th round, Alex, maybe even the 3rd round. Where did Janikowski go many moons ago?
He was the 1st round pick. I don't think
I don't think he'll go
Araiza.
that high, but Araiza is going to be, I won't be shocked if he's drafted 3rd or 4th round, because that guy's a weapon, man.
Yeah, we've seen specialists go not as high as Janikowski, but Robert Aguayo, I think, went 3rd round, although that did not work out for Chicago. I think he'll be probably a 4th round guy. There are some concerns about his directional punting. He's got obviously an incredible leg. He can flip the field, as you mentioned, and can get good hang time, but about some of the directional and can you place it well? I've heard some stuff about that, but overall, I think just the overall talent that he is, the leg strength, the field goal ability, even as a tackler and a coverage guy, there's some value there. So I don't know exactly where or who he's going to go to, but I think Araiza 4th round sounds about right.
One last one, because I hate ignoring these people. James Constantino writes in, should the Steelers consider signing Ebron to an over the minimum contract to be a backup and to compensate for a thin wide receiver room? What's your best guess for the contract that Edmonds signs? And do you think Anthony Miller can make the active roster as a replacement for James Washington? Anthony Miller is one of those guys that's going to be tough to kind of gauge, along with a guy like Miles Boykin right now. I'll tell you what, Anthony Miller's not a lock to make the roster, but when you look at guys that have got experience and can play in the slot, one that's played with Trubisky, pedigree guy, and Anthony Miller, you can see it going both ways with Anthony Miller. I'll just leave it like that. As far as an Edmonds contract, man, the longer that he stays unsigned, that's not great for him. At max, I think he's a 2-year, $8 million guy at max. So that's $4 million per season. The fact that he hasn't signed yet makes you kind of wonder if maybe he's even going to hit that mark right now when it comes to Edmonds. I'll let Alex answer the other one. Should the Steelers consider signing Ebron to an over the minimum contract to be a backup and to compensate for the thin wide receiver room? Go.
Well, it's a very short answer. No, I would not. Ebron with the knee injuries, older. I understand that kind of big slot type of role, but it's still not really going to fit well overall. So, nope, Ebron, he had a good first year. That kind of made the contract worth it, I suppose, but no interest. Quick question about the safeties. Do you think, and no one knows this, but do you think Matthew and or Edmonds sign anywhere before the draft? Or are you in the camp of those guys will wait it out until after the draft?
Say it again.
Will Tyrann Mathieu and or Terrell Edmonds sign before the draft, or will they both wait until after the draft to sign somewhere?
I mean, it really feels now at this point that it'll be after the draft on both of them.
It does.
Be quite honest with
you. And I'm
you.
surprised by that. I would have never guessed that.
Right.
A month or so ago.
Right. I thought we'd have clarity on Edmonds by now, to be honest with you.
Right.
At least him.
Do you think Edmonds hasn't signed because teams are waiting to see where Matthew goes? Is that, or do you think they're not really as linked as maybe I'm illustrating?
I wouldn't attach Edmonds as much to Matthew. No.
Okay. I did not in the sense of like they're not the same player, but just until Matthew decides where he goes, Edmonds isn't gonna. There might not be a firm offer.
No,
for him.
I buy it more of maybe how this thing might be related to both the draft and compensatory draft pick formula. First, the draft, the teams want maybe to get through to see where they stand on that element of it, and then second, for all we know, they might have a wink, wink, nudge, nudge with a guy like Matthew, and because of the contract maybe being, I don't know, $8 million per, that they saying we'd much rather sign you after the draft, so that doesn't count against what we already have on the compensatory draft ledger. That could potentially be, or it could be they just his demands are too high on top of it. So I am surprised technically that Edmonds is still unsigned, just because you'd kind of figure at this point with the safety market dwindling that he would have signed somewhere for something. And really, I don't know how I feel about Matthew being unsigned at this point. I am a bit surprised that he's still on the street, I guess, overall.
Yeah, I am as well.
All right. Let's see, man. We got about 30 minutes of questions in there on this show, I think, as well, too. Alex and I should be back on Friday. We'll talk a little bit more about Colbert and Tomlin speaking on Monday, pre-draft press conference. So we'll definitely have something after Monday to discuss of some form or fashion of what they did or did not say during their Monday pre-draft press conference, but at least we have that on the books now. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button. For $25 for 1 year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.